Como guys, my name is JBuilds and welcome to one of the final Dragonlands related videos that will be going up on my channel. I have a small selection of rise and fall type videos, and then eventually we're going to be doing our Dragonlands lore saga, but this is going to be one of the final videos that I do on actual Dragonlands content. So as some of you may know, Dragonlands has pretty much ended. It's been replaced with a new admin group, a new owner, and they've even changed the name, logo, and everything about it, basically. And a good portion of the player base, especially the veterans from Seasons 1 and 2, have either left or disregarded Dragonlands as a fraud, or the new Dragonlands. So today, in remembrance to the server that basically built my and a few other people's childhoods, and has brought a lot of experience in video creation and just Minecraft in general, and how to create a good community to me, I'd like to give sort of a full history of Dragonlands from pre-Season 1, while they were beginning to create the foundations for Dragonlands, all the way to just a few days ago, the most recent events on the server. So let's just jump right into it. So starting with pre-Season 1, just before Season 1 opened and the majority of big, massively influential players came in, RumWoogie and Starhunter13 were uploading a single-player world from their previous smaller realm, Dragon Isles, which is why later Dragonlands was renamed Dragon Isles and then renamed back, but for a time we had the Dragon Isles period, and the pre-Season 1 period was also known as Dragon Isles, with alternate names being Dragon Spires and eventually Dragonlands. They built the spawn area, a small town with some underwater tunnels, and after that people like Altue, Captain Niels, Assassin Augustus, and I joined from a Reddit post very shortly after. Queenstown, Buildsville, the Quartz Towers, and the Commune were built quite quickly, all major positions that played a large role in both the Civil War and the major events of Season 1. Otto's Cathedral was built, and the Age of Otto begins. Churches, towers, and even a casino of Otto begin to pop up around the realm and the main island specifically. Altue decided at this time that he wanted his quartz towers to be the center of trade and shopping, which is why he built such massive large towers with such space inside them. He never put anything inside them, he always rented it out to people. But then I decided to build the boardwalk, which was free to people, which kind of ruined his master plan of setting up a central economy surrounded around the quartz towers. So the boardwalk starts to spread, and it continues to expand until people build shops on the side of it, and on the end of it, so then we had to go out to the side and expand it even more. Altue and I teamed up to build a stock exchange shortly after the Altue episode, which was one of my first Dragonlands episodes, and this is where Altue and I start to both explain to each other our goals, which is what kind of forges our friendship originally, and it also what begins to divide us, which is sort of a precursor to the Season 2 battles. And the Civil War is the main thing that kind of sparks this divide. So the boardwalk expands a lot further down to the old creeper farm and even the spawn island at some point. This is where I move out of Buildsville and build my fortress with Diamond Skull 123 and dirt to protect against the upcoming Civil War between Otto. So the fort was originally just built so that I had a place in between Buildsville and the shopping district to keep things and stay so that I didn't have to go further. Diamond Skull 123 and Dirt both joined the fortress as they expanded it, but the fortress was then turned into a refuge during the Civil War, so this comes a bit later, but it's a sort of major but not really a war area, part of the Civil War. It's a landmark, but nothing really happened there besides the precursor to the war and some of the planning that happened during the battles. So after this, Diamond Skull 123 forms the Fish, which becomes a religion later, and then Diamond Skull 123's pet cod is killed by Altue. This is the moment that the Civil War begins, and as many of the wars in the future are sparked, it begins with the killing of a pet, and by Altue specifically. So Altue specifically has started, I believe, 3 wars by killing a pet, which is interesting. So Diamond Skull then wages war on Otto because he thinks that Altue is with Otto, when in reality Altue is not really on his side. There are 2 big fights that occur. One is at the cathedral, and it's a smaller battle between Rum, Diamond Skull, Altue, and Starhunter13 came in slightly afterward, but this isn't the big battle at the cathedral, that comes later. The other is a duel between Diamond Skull and Altue, which runs through shopping, beginning on the boardwalk in front of Diamond Skull's rocket shop, and then this sort of comes around through the bookstore and the stables, and ends just underneath the RumWoogie pixel art head. So the final battle is at the cathedral, and this is where everybody gets involved. A giant zombie, one of the AI-less zombies that was brought into the game very early on, and it's just sitting there in the game files, was spawned via a command block in the underground cult of Otto. So this I'll get to a bit later, but during the battle, the war weapons are brought out, which are overpowered weapons and god armor, including Dad's Belt, which is a stick with knockback 5,000. And there are several other war weapons which are used in the fight, and I have a big video on the Civil War itself. It was, of course, when I was younger and a smaller content creator, even though I am still fairly small. This is before I had the experience to make a good video, so if you want to check this out, just beware. It's pretty poorly done, but it has all the facts that you need to understand the First Civil War. So the Vex are actually formed during the battle, and the Vex are Starhunter13's religion, but also the Mist Empire. The Vex is basically the Mist Empire before it's turned into a faction, before factions really exist. So the religions of Fish, Otto, and the Vex, which are these kind of made-up groups, cliques, sort of thing. These are the precursor to factions which are introduced in Season 2. So this, after the Vex are formed, this is kind of where we take the iconic screenshot, Diamond Skull, Altue, Rum, and Star. Unfortunately, I was not in the screenshot because I logged off before it actually happened, which is kind of sad, but still, I wasn't as big of a player in the war. I really was only around during that final battle, and I was really only helping the fish for the most part. So, after the final battle of the Civil War, Star builds the Vex Temple, which is a floating island with a quartz temple and an armor stand with the Vex head on it. And there's a diamond there, which is renamed to signify, you know, that it's the Vex Temple, and there's actually a secret if you press a button where you go under the temple, and there's just a small little room underneath the temple, and it's a strange place, just sort of in between Queenstown and Buildsville, off to the side of the Cathedral of Otto, sort of similar to where the Tower of Otto and Diamond Skull 123's base is, just around that area. But it's very obscure. The first people to really find it, besides Star himself, were Diamond Skull 123 and RumWoogie, since they flew around the area. Since Rum was building the Tower to Otto, and Diamond Skull's base was right there. It was in directly between Diamond Skull's base and shopping, in the line of flight that he would take to get to and from his base and shopping. So during this time, the commune has been growing kind of in the shadows, incorporating a lot more players and expanding and building tons and tons of farms. So at this point, the commune consists of Nemdi, Thomes, Kitetsu Blade, Assassin Augustus, Captain Niels, and a few more people who are all sort of in this one area, all connecting, building farms. They even have their own shopping center down there, and their own Christmas tree, and they are sort of their own clique, and they aren't getting as involved in the major wars and the major Season 1 goings on. This is important as we get further, because this is why some of the commune members leave in Season 2, because they're looking for a different style of playing that DragonLands is bringing about, and also why some of the veterans from Season 1 who lived in the commune take different sides during upcoming battles and during the end times of DragonLands, what they're called by some of the Holy Order. So, after the commune's expansion, Avalon is built, and this is a major point in DragonLands history, because when Avalon is built and it begins to expand, this is the first time we start to see a faction mentality based around the economic structure of DragonLands. The economy of DragonLands has always played a major part in the way factions are formed and how much power factions have. If a certain faction leader in a certain faction has economic power, has a big shop or multiple very high grossing shops, then they're going to tend to have more players getting involved with them, making treaties with them, and joining their faction. So to sort of attack back at the expanding Avalon, Enderai Corp is built, which is Nemdi and Diamond Skull 123 building their own corporation. Now, Enderai was much better priced than Avalon at the time, but the thing is, it took so long for Enderai to be built, and it was finished just around the end of Season 1, that it never really gained the traction to bring it into Season 2 full force. Nobody really was able to shop at Enderai because, one, it was in a fairly poor position compared to Avalon on the extension of the boardwalk, and two, just because it never got the time to expand and have people to shop at it. Even though Avalon didn't necessarily have people consistently shopping at it, it still cemented itself in DragonLands from Season 1 onward, and even when it was undergoing renovation and becoming an automated system, which never was followed through with, it still remained significant. So after Enderai Corp is started, pieces of Rum's base are expanded, but the commune begins to push back against the expansion of Central Dragonlands and the lore-fueled Holy Order and that area. The commune is pushing back, and this signifies the beginnings of the commune separating itself from Central Dragonlands, from the lore-based, faction-based, And this whole idea of what Dragonlands is kind of founded on today by the Season 1 and Season 2 veterans. This is what Dragonlands is to them. The factions, the lore, the wars, but the commune doesn't really want anything to do with it. They want to just play vanilla and set up bases and have fun. That's why their members begin to trickle away late Season 1 into Season 2. Greg the Villager on the boardwalk dies. This isn't significant to any major events, but it is something that features itself in one of my earlier videos. Nobody really knows who Greg was, but he was important because he existed. So during this time, it's becoming December, we built the Christmas tree and we expand the boardwalk finally all the way into the spawn point and finally connect it with everything. Of course, this was far unnecessary. Nobody was gonna build that many shops, but we did it just to expand it all the way to spawn so that people could have an easy way to get from spawn to the creeper farm to the shopping district. And after the Christmas tree is built, and after I finish my Season 1 finale, Season 2 begins quite quickly, and it starts this time with an empty spawn. So, fairly early on, after the shopping district is founded, I build Avalon, but at this point, Avalon is just cobblestone and birch leaves. Altue begins to build the quartz towers, and Star builds his base and shopping very quickly. Diamond Skull 123 then comes in and lays down paths in shopping, and Rum actually starts very early on to build the Temple of Auto. At this point, Diamond Skull 123, Dirt, and I are living in a village fairly close to where Rum's Season 2 base would start to lay its foundations. A player by the name of ColdestStew82, who lives nearby, also joins our commune there, but we quickly leave the area because it's getting very messy and there's really no way to build our individual bases since our styles sort of clash. So further on, new players begin to join, including specifically Oogabunga, who later went on to rename himself D-Drag. So this is where Avalon Season 2, when these new players join, after most of the early game is complete and we start to move into the end game phases, which is usually early on in the season that we hit end game, where everyone has elytras and full gear and the dragon has been killed several times over. This is where we start to hit the actual foundations of Dragonland, where big bases get to be built and shops get to be expanded, and the major community projects sort of start to arise. So Avalon Season 2 is being built quite big, and the rocket shops are being built, Deckard Gur's rocket shop and Starhunter13's rocket shop, which will later on go on to have a massive price war, which will drive down prices of rockets immensely, which is good for people, but this means that usually the rocket shops in the shopping district were empty or were filled with discounts, and you never knew the real price and you never knew which one was better. Later on, Avalon would also go into the rocket shop sort of segment, but it would never gain traction. People would never buy rockets from Avalon legitimately. So Avalon City sort of begins to get built, which is quite close to, in between shopping and the later Aldmeri Dominion, which is Jules 117's base, which gets built later. But this is Avalon City before I was good at building. So this is a weird oval-shaped wall that has fairly early game materials slapped together into some weird house. and this was before I started actually getting into building and knowing what looked good. This was me just looking at something in my young mind and saying, hey, this is probably pretty good. But that is one of the things with Minecraft where you always have those memories of building a base, but it was what people built back then, and back in the alpha and very early, like 1.10 days, this was all we had, and we built like that for fun. That was the peak of building. This sort of messy, indescript style that shaped most of what people do in Minecraft. So, very, very quickly, Avalon City is completed, and then griefed, and then pranked with lots and lots and lots of chickens, which remain in the world download to this day. There are so many chickens just in old Avalon City. Even if you go into the world download for Season 2, you'll find so many chickens in old Avalon City. So Avalon City is slightly fixed, and at this point, Rum removes the spawners data pack because of the griefing of Avalon with the chickens. And the spawners data pack was a data pack that allowed you to craft spawners, which helped with the creation of people's creeper farms and such, but was ultimately what allowed Avalon City to get griefed, Salaminder's early base to get griefed, and Diamond Skull 123's Season 2 base to get griefed. So the Temple of Auto is quickly finished, the Vex Forge is added along with the courthouse off to the side, and the courthouse is where we'll have Altue versus Jules 117, which is a later episode that is a pretty fun episode and a very memorable episode. The quartz towers at this point are quite nearly finished, and there are 3 of them now, and it will later go on to be 5, plus a random pillar, which actually happened to be Altue's base. Rum's base is completed, and this is when he starts to build the Millennium Falcon and the Super Star Destroyer, which would tower above his base, which is widely thought to be built in creative, although I did watch him build bits of the Super Star Destroyer by hand, so I don't know, might be a little suspicious. Star's base is expanded and completed all the way out to a desert village nearby, which is one of the most beautiful bases in Dragonlands history. His Season 2 base, really fantastic. Shortly after, we will begin to see the beginnings of the Spawn Cultivation Project, which was headed by Nemd and Uga Bunga, and this was one of the major projects of Dragonlands Season 2. There were farms, there was a rail network, there were lots of things being built at Spawn, and this is when Jules 117 joins, which is why the temple, the sort of Mayan-style temple, although it was a step period, Mayan-inspired, I'd assume, built at Spawn. This was one of the first major projects, and there are villagers at Spawn, there's an iron farm that's built, and many just farms and even bases built around Spawn. And this is why, when some of the new players join, this is one of the first things they see, and this is one of the major projects that helped shape the newer generations of Dragonlands to come when they first saw this Spawn, and the teamwork that was created. And this is why certain people were surprised to find that we were split into factions and had wars constantly when Dragonlands was able to come together for the Spawn Cultivation Project, and it was the first thing they saw. So after Spawn Cultivation ends, the shopping district expands rapidly, and this is when Avalon shoots into the sky, and the Avalon Vacation Service is founded with those weird armed things that stuck out, and when the bamboo farms that were originally in Avalon Industries sort of shoot into the sky, where we see sugarcane bamboo farms taking over the skyline of Avalon Industries. That small little 2-chunk area that Avalon is built in is covered in these green farms and covered in stone bricks. And this is when the quartz towers grow very fast, and when Altue lets it slip that he has nukes. So this is marking the beginning of a large stage in DragonLands Season 2, DragonLands history, where we have multiple wars. We have the Cold War, the Nuclear War, and the Second Civil War, which was just renamed the DragonLands Season 2 War, or the Off-Camera War, as I put it in one of my videos. War is declared by Altue on Avalon for no apparent reason, but this was revealed later as Altue Corp, which is what Araz or Altsvania was called before. Altue Corp is at a rivalry with Avalon. Altue Corp at this point really doesn't have that many members, but neither does Avalon, as it hasn't really become a faction yet. It's really just Dirt, Diamond Skull 123, and J Builds. And even Diamond Skull 123 wasn't really a part of Avalon. So this is where Jules 117 sort of begins to build the Aldmeri Dominion, or the Hobbits, up, and this is his gigantic Hobbit house city that a lot of people really looked up to in Season 2 as sort of the pinnacle of building. So the Hobbits are one of the key factors in my DragonLands lore video, which is upcoming. The Hobbits play a major part in sort of shaping the end bits of DragonLands lore. But the Hobbits really didn't play a part in anything before, which is why it's really hard to incorporate them into DragonLands history, as they sort of just appear. So at this point, this is when I crashed a steampunk ship into the quartz towers with Golden Star 2660 in retaliation to Altue shooting a nuclear missile directly into my apartment. Altue covered Avalon in Araz banners, which at the time were red and black instead of white and blue, like the new design is. At this point, Araz, or Altue Corp, was known as Altsvania, although the name was short-lived as Araz, or the Arasanian Empire, became the dominant name that you would call Altue's faction. So Avalon expands with more farms and builds the weapon house next to it. And at the time that Avalon also builds the Helicarrier, which is a large Marvel-inspired ship built in the sky out of stone bricks. Now, it doesn't look anything like the Marvel Helicarrier, but it does have a full interior, which was extremely strange for a giant flying ship. So Altue sort of surrenders at this point, and unofficially, he doesn't really officially surrender, but a pact is made, and this is where Altue gifts Avalon the shopping city, and he didn't even have the rights to gift the shopping city and the major parts of the shopping district, but he gives Avalon the entire shopping district as long as he can take the Quartz Towers area and one of these central roads. So this is when the construction of the shopping city begins, which is highlighted in a lot of my later Season 2 videos, with NemD and I building up shopping district, and Starhunter13 later joining and building up several sections of the shopping district into a city, primarily on Industrial Street and Avalon Pikeway, which were the two major named roads. The Aldmeri Dominion at this point and Avalon sign a treaty which helps Avalon during the war and also allows Avalon City 2 to be built fairly close to the Dominion. Queenstown 2, though, is shoved right between the Aldmeri Dominion and Avalon City 2, which was never agreed upon and slightly annoyed both Jules 117 and I. A catapult battle is held between Avalon City 2 and Queenstown 2, which never really ends up doing anything, but it was fun to see the progression of small catapults and rocks being flung. The spawn cultivation at this point is complete, and Spawn has almost every farm that you can hand make. Not many redstone farms besides the iron farm, but a lot of hand farms and crop farms and villager farms are at the spawn area. The nether hub at this point is very nearly complete, but the nether hub in Season 2 was a lot less intricate than Season 1, and definitely a lot worse than in Seasons 4 and 5, which were when the nether sort of became a big part of the Minecraft scene with the 1.16 update. So, at this point, the rail network begins its construction, and the rail network, which is one of the major parts of Spawn and connects Spawn and the shopping district and a few major factions, this begins its construction. This is a major project because a lot of factions put their resources and their work into the rail network. This is a collaboration between the Aldmeri Dominion, some of the remaining members of the commune, the Avalonians, the Autonians, and some of the Mist Imperial members. And this is where we start to see the connection of Dragonlands, and people begin to think that we won't have a war for a little bit longer. So, theme park construction begins, and the mall begins construction, but it's never finished. Dragon Town is finished, which is a small town with a house for every prominent member from Seasons 1 and 2, plus a stage where the talent show is then held. And the stage is blown up by Diamond Skull 123 and Altue. After this, just off the side of the shopping district, if you go a little ways further past the nuclear bunkers of Avalon, you'll find Dragon City, which is a modern city built by Star, Rum, and I, which is one of the largest modern builds in all of Dragonland's history. Altue then once again declares war on Avalon, but this time he also declares war on Otto, which then sparks the alliance of the Knights of the Holy Order from Season 1, which were the major religions, Fish, Vex, and Otto, to join forces. At this point, both Araz and Avalon are part of the Holy Order, but Araz in this situation is an enemy, and which is why Altue was eventually kicked out of the Holy Order. Starhunter13 builds a plane for Altue without the consent of the Holy Order, which houses nuclear missiles in it, and at this point RumWoogie joins Avalon. Rum and I raided Altue's towers, destroying the nukes. This is when Jules gets involved and adheres to the treaty between the Aldmeri Dominion and Avalon. Altue duels with Rum and loses in a major video that I recorded, which hosts both the Altue vs. Rum duel and a few raids with Jules at spawn. At this point, the duel signifies the winning of Avalon and the Holy Order. Altue decides to declare war once again. Rum becomes the CEO of Avalon, and I'm promoted to admin at this point, which is when the dreadnoughts are built, the giant dark oak and spruce ships in the sky. The mothership is built by Starhunter13, but it's never finished. And then Star griefs the quartz towers, which turns off TNT for the rest of the season. Altue hides 20,000 blocks away in an igloo, which signifies the loss of Altue. NemD and I begin to expand Shopping City even further, and this is when most of the members of the Republic join, which includes Salamander, Rottings, Legorealm, Tax, and a lot of those members that joined early season 3, late season 2, that era. The rail network is done, and the server sort of just chills out until season 2 ends, and we have about a week of hyping up season 3, where season 3 begins before 1.16 is out, unfortunately, because right around this time, COVID-19 breaks out and delays the release of 1.16. So we just have season 3 earlier, expecting to expand season 3 once 1.16 is released and reset the nether. So immediately when season 3 becomes open to the public, Avalon is built, like very, very shortly after, on the first day of season 3, Avalon is built. And this new rule in the shopping district, which was headed by Ugabunga and NemD, is that people must pay for land, which wasn't very popular and wasn't even really held as an actual rule. Very few people actually paid for the land in the shopping district. So the Republic at this point is formed, which is Legorealm, Scullipede 545, Salamander, and a few other members who are all part of the older server, which is called Forsaken. So Forsaken was the server that most of the members of the Republic and of Tarex, which is another faction that was founded in Season 3, all came from, and Forsaken died shortly before the beginning of Season 3. So Avalon City at this point begins to build itself up in a corner of Spawn Island, and it grows very big, very fast. And the quartz towers begin construction just off the coast of Spawn Island, but don't actually ever get finished throughout the entire season. For the bulk of the early to middle parts of the season, the most that ever happens is expansion of cities and major areas like the Republic, Avalon City, and Shopping District. Nothing much that is very significant happens during this time. Very early on in the middle portion of Season 3, the Republic assembles an army of clones. Armor stands with variants of Legorealm's head on them. Altue, frightened by this new army, stays behind the scenes working the politics of Dragonlands, which was one of the major things he did during Season 3. Instead of working in-game, he worked behind the scenes and in the Discord server as to bring about his influence, which never really worked because he wasn't influencing anything in-game and his quartz towers were never really built. Avalon begins to take over the economy unintentionally, but also slightly intentionally. And this is when Avalon starts to shoot into the sky and build tons and tons of farms all across its land. Avalon City expands across the south and southeast areas of the Spawn Island even building out a custom peninsula across to expand into the ocean towards the glaciers and sort of around the area of RumWoogie's base. At this point, Ugabunga is promoted to Vice President of Avalon, and the Republic is expanding very fast. The United Minds, which is the precursor to the United Nations, is built, connecting the railway with the closest area to the Republic. The McDonald's Play Place is built, which is a large obsidian and lava structure used for PvP duels. When the PvP fights happen, they're usually either at Spawn Island or the McDonald's Play Place. Araz tries to declare war, but never follows through with the Republic and with Avalon. The Republic begins constructions of the Star Destroyer Venator, one of the largest builds of Season 2. Avalon, scared at this, builds the framework of one of the Season 2 dreadnoughts, but never finishes it. Ugabunga International Airport is built on the peninsula. The rail network is completed, stretching all the way from the closest area to the Republic, the United Minds, to the east part of Avalon City on the peninsula. The subway construction begins, which is sort of connected to the rail network, but only by a few stations. And the subway basically just runs through Avalon City and connects major parts of the city. The shopping district at this point is beautified, and Avalon expands even more throughout the shopping district like a disease. Starhunter13's jungle base is completed, and Operation AYX begins. Operation AYX is one of the most influential behind-the-scenes project in DragonLands history, where the owners and leaders of Avalon and Terex conspired to build a mall in the Nether once 1.16 came out, and build their respective shops, Avalon Industries and Tax Corp, in the mall. Since Avalon Industries was, at the time, the largest and highest grossing shop of all Dragonlands history, and would remain to be that for the rest of Dragonlands history, they would plan to redirect shopping away from the shopping district and into this new mall in the Nether. It was a plan to take over and control the economy and connect the Nether Hub with their mall, leading everyone straight to Avalon. It was foreshadowed in my episode Nether Avalon, which was a build in one of the 1.16 snapshots of what Avalon Industries in the Nether might look like. Rum's sea base at the time was complete, and the Avalon Catacombs were complete, which held a history of Avalon and some secrets along the way. The subway expands more to connect with the rail network, and at this point, Avalon Industries is griefed by Blue Slime, who was banned shortly after. Altue leaves Dragonlands for 1.5 months to get some fresh air, also because he moved and did not have internet connection. The Venator is completed. Ugabunga defeats every admin in a tournament at the McDonald's Play Place tournament arena. AYX is exposed by Altue in the Discord server, shaking every member, and A squared is formed, a second plan that sort of was similar but was more exposed and already was clear to the public what they were going to be doing. Avalon was looked down upon from that point on as sort of a unrightful disease across the economy, which it was in Season 3. Before, it was hailed as a just, republic and one of the only good factions out there, and the winner of the wars against the evil Arasanians, but now Avalon is looked down upon as a wrongful faction that was corrupted by power. So at this point, the subway is completed, and Avalon City is completed, and then I am temporarily de-opt for admin abuse, which is true. In Season 3, there was a lot of admin abuse from both me, admittedly, and certain other admins. And then the Venator was attacked and defended by certain Arasanians. The IRS was built very close to Avalon City, and there is a land dispute between the IRS and Avalon, which ends in Avalon building a tower going over the IRS, and eventually IRS wins the dispute, even though the IRS is closed and the IRS building is never used. So right around this time, Season 3 ends, before the 1.16 update even begins, and people feel not the best about Season 3. Season 3 is sort of looked upon as the worst season. But once Season 4 begins, a lot of people start to say, perhaps I treated you too harshly. New players are added at the beginning of Season 4, including Skizzle, and Avalon is under construction, but on the far edges of the shopping district, because people don't really trust that Avalon will be the same respectable business it used to be. And because of this, Araz gains a massive following of 12 members, which doesn't sound big, but was at the time unlike anything before. 12 was the highest number ever that a faction got in member count. Tarex falls, Araz expands widely, Raxify and Altue are banned for griefing and hacking, but at this point, riots are broke out because Araz wants their leader back, and also Raxify. Avalon is griefed during this time, and Salaminder takes over Araz as the new autocrat. Avalon shrinks, RumWoogie leaves Avalon, Oogabunga leaves Avalon, Oogabunga changes his name to D-Drag, and Avalon But Better Inc. is founded. Avalon But Better Inc. closes shortly after, and Skulltown is formed. Now at this point, Season 4 abruptly ends, because RumWoogie steps down as owner. And this is a very shocking and very insane point in Dragonlands history, when people don't really know what's going to happen. I stepped up as the new owner a few hours after the announcement was made, and Season 5 begins. Avalon falls because I decided that I couldn't be the owner and a faction leader because it would be unjust, and I joined Skulltown. Skulltown begins to gain traction, Oogabunga leaves Araz for Skulltown, Diamond Skull 123 is unbanned after he was banned in Season 2 for abuse and hacking. Diamond Skull 123, mere hours after being unbanned, hacks and is banned again. Araz declares war on Skulltown because Skulltown is threatening their grip on power and the economy. Skulltown reforms to the Sunset Kingdom to appeal to new players more. The Sunset Kingdom then expands quite rapidly, and RumWoogie returns. At this point, Salaminder is accused of duping and is temporarily banned, and Thazar takes over Araz. Skulltown is griefed, Araz is griefed, and Araz is griefed a second time. And then Skulltown and Tax both get grief. Specifically, Tax is targeted. Players are banned for the grief, and Season 5 ends due to the sheer insanity of the events that just happened. Bots were raiding the Discord server and spam DMing members, and people were legitimately scared for a point. At this point, people are unsure of what to do, and it looks like Dragonlands may be coming to an end. There is talk of a new server called New Horizons, but that is never followed through with after RumWoogie invites the entire Dragonlands Discord server to join New Horizons, shutting it down. Dragon Isles, which was one of the original names of Dragonlands, is then formed, which will be a new server, but is basically Dragonlands Season 6. There's a new admin team, a new world, and new hopes for a good server that is similar to Season 2. We go clean slate. All the factions from before are disassembled. At this point, Seabound, Axiom, Jordbear, Chaos Brigade, and Allspark are formed, the major factions for Dragon Isles Season 1. The Jovial Mall is built, one of the first major parts of the shopping district. And the Nether Hub is built very early on by Skizzle, D-Drag, and I. The Nether Hub East Tunnel is quickly expanded all the way to the Chaos Brigade, which Chaos Brigade was, at the time, one of the furthest out factions and places in Dragon Isles. The New Republic is formed, which is marking the return of Legorealm, and the Head Exchange opens, a place where you can buy and sell player and mob heads, which gains traction and becomes one of the larger shops of Dragon Isles Season 2. The Nether Hub West Tunnel expands all the way to the New Republic, and the Nether Hub South Tunnel expands all the way to Allspark. At this point, D-Drag and RumWoogie have a fake wedding, which is one of the few things that can be taken away from Dragon Isles as a funny and wholesome part of this season. Spawn cultivation begins, and Spawn is reformed into a semi-beautiful place, which is a nice place to look at, and for once, Spawn actually doesn't look like a dump. The Head Museum opens, which is a host of rare and valuable heads, including old J-Build's heads and rare Altue heads, and all 3 Salamander heads, which is a feat in and of itself. The subway construction begins, which connects itself to the Head Exchange. The admin abuse trials are held after Starhunter13 and RumWoogie abuse their admin overnight and spawn in war weapons, abuse the /effect command, which ends in a rollback of 12 hours, the biggest rollback in Dragonlands history. There's a war, sort of, between Chaos Brigade and Axiom, but when war is declared, the Axiom members just trickle away. There's a trivia contest held, and the 26 diamond D-Drag head is stolen, which is the most valuable head at the time, stolen from the Head Museum. The talent show 2.0 is held, and Skizzle leaves, leaving Thezar to take over Axiom. Allspark collapses, and Jordbear collapse, and the new Avalon is founded. The Eastern Alliance is shortly founded, which is an alliance between New Avalon, Chaos Brigade, and the Eastern factions. Shopping City construction begins, and the Jovial Mall closes. Subway construction halts, and the server just dies for a week, with an average of 1 to 2 players online per day. nothing much really happens during this time, as people are starting to lose spark that made DragonLands special. At this point, I was having some trouble with school, and it was hard to pay for the server, so I announced the end of DragonLands. D-Drag and NemD took over to try to reignite the spark, but it was too late. Jules117 was planning on rejoining, but when Starhunter13, RumWoogie, Altue, and I left, he went with us to the new server, which I'll be announcing in a few days is opening. The server community starts to turn on us, actually, which is very strange. They turned on the founder of DragonLands. The server is renamed to NimbusSMP, the Cloud, and a lot of OG players leave. But a lot of players who, as I mentioned, lived in the commune of Season 1 actually stay, because the new version of DragonLands, this NimbusSMP, is actually more in tune with what they wanted to play in the beginning. The consensus among the previous admin team, some Season 1 and 2 veterans, and the Holy Order, is that DragonLands has ended. And this marks the final resting point of DragonLands. It's been renamed NimbusSMP. There's a whole new admin team. Players were unbanned. People are fairly unhappy with the current status, as is what I've seen from DMs on Discord. And we've started a brand new server. If you liked this video and you want to see more scripted content like this, then just let me know, because I plan on shifting my channel to be more scripted, more formal content about topics that I care about. I might do some movie reviews, I might talk about certain issues that I care about, and I'm just going to be talking about anything I think about. I also stream, but not very often, on Twitch, and as you can see already, I'm reforming everything to the J logo and the J brand. Instead of the letter J, it's now J-A-E, after my sort of startup music production that I've been doing for a little while, that I've sort of tried to keep away from my other content, but now I'm trying to connect it all. So you can join my Discord server, Everything J, which is all of my content smushed into one Discord server where you can find everything. You can also, once we prepare, you can possibly join our new server, Solarcraft, which will be headed by Rum and I, with Star, Altue, and Jules. Although, do be warned, most previous DragonLands members will be not accepted because of the toxicity that is surrounding DragonLands at the moment, and the DragonLands community, and just what we've heard from former members and current members about the current state of DragonLands. If you are interested in playing an SMP that is chill, that is more surrounded about building, then I do actually recommend DragonLands. They've sort of reformed, and they are trying to be the best server they can, and they're trying to adhere to the community. They are building themselves around a new community, and that's always hard for a server. So if you are looking for a server to join, I highly recommend DragonLands. That being said, thank you for watching. If you made it through the entire video, then leave a like or a comment or something, and I'll be working on some new content later. Also, check out my music channel, because I make music also. See ya.